Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbia Online, the church of courageous love, radical welcome, and deep connection. Now more than ever, it is important for us to gather and remember that our church is not a building, but a beloved community of all of us together. I am Todd Iveson, the Worship Associate this morning. This is the second of our summer lay-led services, addressing questions relevant to the diversity of our congregation's religious beliefs and practices. Today's question is, what does justice look like to you? I want to thank Sam Buffaloe and Maria Oropallo for agreeing to provide their perspectives on the question this morning. Although we all miss gathering in person on Sundays, the online services have given us an opportunity to connect with many people we might not have met otherwise. We welcome in particular the members of the Jefferson City Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, as well as all of you in Missouri and beyond. A few comments about protocol for today's online worship. We are in Zoom and streaming live on Facebook. We are in Zoom webinar mode, so we can't hear or see you. Feel free to eat your breakfast in your PJs, and don't worry if your dog is barking or your child are making, or children are making joyful noises. You'll be able to say hello and to interact with the service through the chat feature. Make sure you select panelists and attendees so everyone can see your comment. This will be particularly useful if you wish to share joy or sorrow when we reach that portion of the services. If this is your first time worshiping with us, please fill out a digital visitor's card at the link provided in the chat and let us know a little about you. I want to thank the tech hosts, Linda Valentine, who's running the slides, and Larry Lyle monitoring the chat. I also want to thank Reverend Molly Hausch-Gordon, Jamila Batchelder, Director of Religious Education, Jeremy Wagner, Director of Music Ministry, and Hans Bridger Harith, Staff Collaborative Pianist, for their assistance with this morning's service. And a special thanks to Alan Arnold, Sam Otten, and Sam Buffaloe for their recording for the offertory. Please relax and enjoy our prelude. What does justice look like to you? When I agreed to organize a service around this topic at the beginning of April, I did not yet realize how central the issue of justice would become in the age of COVID and the seemingly endless killings of Black men and women by the pandemic and police. On the bulletin board in the lower level of our church building, where our pre-pandemic youth education classes were held, is the beginning of a famous quotation from Cornel West. Justice is what love looks like in public. Apparently, we hope these words will guide our youth. But where? What does love or justice look like in public? Our first Unitarian Universalist principle acknowledges the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And our second principle affirms the need for justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. But how do these lofty principles translate into action? Finally, it is fitting as we celebrate the birth of the United States this weekend that we remember that we, the people of the United States, adopted our Constitution to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Have we met? Can we meet this promise of establish justice? In so many ways, we say that justice is important to us. So, what does justice look like today in the US, living in the shadow of a pandemic? Please join with Jeremy in singing at home hymn number 170, We Are a Gentle, Angry People.
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
You may now wish to light a candle at home or look in the chat for a digital chalice. As we light our chalices, the symbol of our faith, at home or digitally, will you please join me in lifting your voices and home across our city, country, and world to share our weekly words of affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning. So as many of you know, Unitarian Universalism used to be two religions, Unitarians and Universalists. And I think often our Unitarian tradition tends to overshadow our Universalist tradition. And don't get me wrong, I love our Unitarian tradition, but I also really love our Universalist tradition with its focus on a universal human family and its centering of a passionate embodied love as being the center of what it means to be a person of faith. Someone pointed out to me recently that our 7 principles, nowhere in there is the word love mentioned. And so I feel like it's really important to think about how do we bring love, that passionate love, that love you feel in your body, into how we approach issues like justice. When I thought about justice this week, you know, the Unitarian tradition would speak to fairness and righteousness and moral law. But what does the Universalist say about justice? And while I was thinking about this, someone sent me a song by the rapper JC, and in it he invokes this concept of us all being part of this universal human family. And then he sings as a black man singing to white people, "You are flesh of my flesh and blood of my blood." And then he says, "So killing me is killing you." And I can't get those words out of my head. It's so intimate, flesh of my flesh and blood of my blood, to think about justice at the level of flesh and blood and aching love. Which brings us to the quote that we have on our wall here. Let's see if I can show it to you, that Todd shared. We made this sign during a Valentine's Day service when we were talking about heart-opening love, and each letter was carefully made by a different member of our congregation. I love to look at each letter in its individual detail and the collective beauty of it all. And I hung in here because it centers love in the way that our universalism calls us to do. And so for our centering today, I want us to think about this intersection of justice and love. So breathe in and imagine all the things that make you fall in love with humanity. All the universal experiences that are shared by all, and the specific, the individual, extraordinary people that make up this human family. Pull it into your heart like you were embracing a loved one, and let it fill you. And then breathe out and let that love overflow. Let it pull on you like a tide, tugging you outward into this world, into engagement with it. Feel it pull so strong that you are unable to remain separate. And feel it pull you beyond where you think you want to go, into the places that are hard for you, the places that are painful, where you feel vulnerable and heartbroken and frightened and angry. And when it feels like it might overwhelm you, breathe in again the gift of being part of this human family. Breathe in and breathe out, feeling that pull inward and that pull outward. Feel that tension that is so infused with love. And come to a place that is beyond words, beyond intellect. Something you feel at the level of your heart and your body, your flesh and your blood, where the words love and justice become inseparable. And breathe with that feeling. And remember again that justice is what love looks like in public.
Good morning, UU Churchers, and thank you, Jamila, for that lovely centering. I am reminded by it that some of our Universalist friends and forebears like to say that our work as people of faith is to love the hell out of this world, and that our congregations are where we practice how to do that. That it is hard to truly love one another as family in a universal way. And so we need our communities to practice together. And I was just thinking, as Jamila had us meditating on loving each other like family, about yesterday's March for Black Lives led by Faith Voices. And I saw some of you there, and I was moved to tears to see your faces, even half covered by your masks. I miss you so much, and I love you. And I'm so glad that we can still practice in this way what it means to love the world together. And we do that in part by sharing our joys and sorrows, by opening our hearts to one another, by holding one another tenderly as a community. And so we now enter the portion of our service where each week we share the joys and sorrows and prayers of our community. In just a moment, I'm going to invite you to write your joys and sorrows in the chat. But first, I have a couple that were sent to me directly to share. So let us begin in joining our hearts with healing wishes for Dustin as he recovers from complications from a recent surgery. Let us send all of our love to the Otten family as Chelsea is on hospital bed rest for the final weeks of her pregnancy. We pray that mom and baby will both be well, and that the whole family will feel our love holding them close in this time. And I now invite you to share your joys and sorrows in the chat, and I will read as many as I can into this shared space of learning to love more deeply, more extravagantly, and more vastly. We join our hearts with Dottie, who shares joy and gratitude that another asylum-seeking family, a mom and 2 small children, have arrived at their sponsor's home through the UU Service Committee Congregational Accompaniment Project. We join our hearts with Megan, who shares a joy and a sorrow to go to court tomorrow for an important and long overdue document that will satisfy much needed justice in her life. We join our hearts with Jeremy, who shares joy for a kitten joining his heart and home tomorrow. We join our hearts with Scott, sharing for justice. We join our hearts with Connie, who is grateful to be able to watch Hamilton for a mere $7, powerful and relevant, loving the representation of all of the actors of color. We share greatest joy with Pack and Rebecca, who've been given the green light to announce the pregnancy of their daughter, Hannah Hallwell, thrilled to join the club of grandparents in January. Congratulations. We join our hearts with Kira, who shares a joy to be visiting Larry and mother-in-law in Indiana. We join our hearts with Jean, sharing the concern that their daughter and her 2 older children will all be returning to public school in the fall and not knowing how that will go in these pandemic times. We join our hearts with Jeremy, who shares sorrow for the silence of so many who were vocal just weeks ago in solidarity with the movement for Black lives. We join our hearts in healing wishes to Tonette, suffering from daily migraines. We join our hearts in the great joy of Chuck and Jan Swaney for son Aaron's marriage to Julia in Washington, D.C. Let us hold together in love these joys and sorrows and all those that have not been spoken aloud, but which are held tenderly in the connections between us and in each of our own hearts. We will end our time of joys and sorrows with a prayer in the words of Liz Weber. Spirit of life, help us to be present with all that is our life, our deepest sorrows and our greatest joys, so that we can truly live, engaging fully in our lives and community. Spirit of community, help us know how linked we are, how each one of our cares touches us all. Help us to ask for support when we are in need and offer our support to others when we are able, so that we may rest in the solace of one another's love. Spirit of love, help us to love our neighbor as we love ourselves, so that we might embody justice. Spirit of resistance, help us to stick up for what is right, even when we are tired or afraid. Help us dream of the world as it should be, and then act to bring that world about. Spirit of hope, help us through this day and each day to be present for all that is our life. For all this we pray. Amen. And will you now please join Jeremy in singing at home our next hymn, Step by Step, the Longest March.
Good morning, all. We will be singing this one 3 times through. All right. Step by step, the longest march can be won, Many stones can form an arch, singly none, And by union what we will can be accomplished still. Drops of water turn a mill, singly none, singly none. Step by step the longest march can be won, can be won. Many stones can form an arch, singly none, singly none. And by union what we will can be accomplished still. Drops of water turn a mill, singly none, singly none. Step by step the longest march can be won, can be won. Many stones can form an arch, singly none, singly none. And by union what we will can be accomplished still. Drops of water turn a mill, singly none, singly none.
The reading this morning is Let America Be America Again, excuse me, by Langston Hughes. Let America be America again. Let it be the dream it used to be. Let it be the pioneer on the plain, seeking a home where he himself is free. America never was America to me. Let America be the dream the dreamers dreamed. Let it be that great strong land of love where never kings connive nor tyrants scheme that any man be crushed by one above. It never was America to me. Oh, let my land be a land where liberty is crowned with no false patriotic wreath, but opportunity is real and life is free. Equality is in the air we breathe. There's never been equality for me, nor freedom in this homeland of the free. Say, who are you that mumbles in the dark? And who are you that draws your veil across the stars? Excuse me. I am the poor white, fooled and pushed apart. I am the Negro bearing slavery's scars. I am the red man driven from the land. I am the immigrant clutching the hope I seek and finding only the same old stupid plan of dog eat dog, of mighty crush the weak. I am the young man full of strength and hope, tangled in that ancient endless chain of power, profit, gain, of grab the land, of grab the gold, of grab the ways of satisfying need, of work the men, of take the pay, of owning everything for one's own greed. I am the farmer, bondsman to the soil. I am the worker sold to the machine. I am the Negro, servant to you all. I am the people, humble, hungry, mean, hungry yet today despite the dream. Beaten yet today, oh pioneers, I am the man who never got ahead, the poorest worker bartered through the years. Yet I'm the one who dreamt our basic dream in the old world while still a serf of kings, who dreamt a dream so strong, so brave, so true, that even yet its mighty daring sings in every brick and stone, in every furrow turned that's made America the land it has become. Oh, I'm the man who sailed those early seas in search of what I meant to be my home. For I'm the one who left dark Ireland's shore and Poland's plain in England's grassy lay. And torn from black Africa's strand, I came to build a homeland of the free. The free? Who said the free? Not me? Surely not me. The millions on relief today, the millions shot down when we strike, the millions who have nothing for our pay, for all the dreams we've dreamed and all the songs we've sung and all the hopes we've held and all the flags we've hung, the millions who have nothing for our pay, except the dream that's almost dead today. Oh, let America be America again. The land that never has been yet and yet must be. The land where every man is free. The land that's mine, the poor man's, Indians, Negroes, me, who made America, whose sweat and blood, whose faith and pain, whose hand at the foundry, whose plow in the rain, must bring back our mighty dream again. Sure, call me any ugly name you choose. The steel of freedom does not stain. From those who live like leeches on the people's lives, we must take back our land again, America. Oh yes, I say it plain. America never was America to me. And yet I swear this oath, America will be. Out of the wrack and ruin of our gangster death, the rape and rot of graft and stealth and lies, we, the people, must redeem the land, the mines, the plants, the rivers, the mountains and the endless plain, and all the stretch of these great green states, and make America again. Here ends the reading. So, what does justice look like to you? I'm sure each of you has your own vision. Three of us will share our visions today, beginning with Sam Buffaloe, then Maria Oropallo, and I will conclude.
Good morning. My name is Sam Buffaloe, and I have been a member of this church since 2013. I'm also an attorney, and I have practiced law since 2011, working both as a prosecutor and as a public defender in the Criminal Appeals Division, my current job. Now, the title of my reading refers to how justice in the criminal justice system will always be elusive. It was inspired by recent calls for justice I have heard, specifically with regard to George Floyd, who was brutally choked to death by a police officer in Minneapolis, and Breonna Taylor, who was shot 8 times by Louisville, Kentucky police officers after they needlessly entered her house with a no-knock warrant. This reading is not to belittle those calls for justice in any way, but is instead to encourage those calling for justice to start considering what justice could look like outside of the criminal justice system, where I believe it will always be elusive. At its best, with the utilization of treatment courts, counseling, batterer intervention programs, and treatment programs within prisons, the criminal justice system can help rehabilitate defendants and strive to protect victims and deter crime from happening. However, we should not expect more from it. Even at its best, it cannot make people whole. It cannot right wrongs. It is a slow, messy, and dehumanizing process. The criminal justice system is a prosecutor, a judge, and a defense attorney trying to resolve a case as efficiently as possible, to move on to the hundreds of others waiting, and to resolve it in a way that allows for each of the parties to avoid blame if something goes wrong. For those looking for justice within the criminal justice system, the question is, where does it happen? How do we know when justice occurs? Does justice happen when a deserving person is arrested and charged with a crime? But what about Trayvon Martin, who was killed by George Zimmerman for having the gall to wear a hoodie and walk to buy a bag of Skittles in a gated community? Mr. Zimmerman was charged and tried, but was ultimately acquitted by a jury. It was this acquittal in 2013 that led to the creation of the Black Lives Matter hashtag. So if charges do not bring justice in and of themselves, is it a conviction that brings justice? I can tell you, though, that I have seen many juries convict defendants who should not have been convicted and acquit defendants who should have been found guilty. This has led me to place no faith with the opinions of the 12 men and women in a jury trial or one judge in a bench trial. As an appellate attorney, I can tell you that there are very rarely completely clean trials, even if convictions are rarely reversed. And putting the pressure of justice on the prosecutor to obtain a conviction can lead to behaviors that lead to wrongful convictions. Let's say, though, that an honest and deserving conviction occurs. We still can't forget about what happens after the defendant is convicted. A conviction, after all, is just a means to an end. So are we equating justice with long prison sentences? A scenario where judges give reasonable and merciful sentences to most defendants, but save severe punishments for police officers who commit crimes is simply implausible and certainly doesn't happen in the criminal justice system as it currently exists. So are we okay with mass incarceration as long as police officers who commit crimes are treated just as severely as everyone else? I submit to you that is not justice. On the other end of the spectrum, is it justice if after a fair conviction, the judge shows excessive mercy, allowing the defendant to avoid a long prison system, or by placing the defendant on probation? But this leads to situations where victims feel unheard and disrespected, like in the infamous case of Brock Turner. So if neither mass incarceration nor excessive mercy after horrible crimes leads to justice, what about something in between? In 2019, Officer Amber Geiger was sentenced to 10 years in prison after she killed Botham Jean after mistaking his apartment for her own in the same building. At the sentencing hearing, Mr. Jean's brother famously spoke of forgiveness and gave Ms. Geiger a hug in the courtroom, with the judge also joining in. Though on the surface, this might come closest to looking like justice, should we really expect victims to forgive the tormentors? Shouldn't justice be possible when a victim's anger is too great to forgive someone who is the end result of generations of fear and hatred? I do not believe that those looking for justice for Breonna Taylor and George Floyd are ignoring flaws in the criminal justice system. Instead, I believe inside their heads is the knowledge that police officers erase evidence to protect their fellow officers. How many times, even in the past few weeks, have we heard about killings where an officer's body camera is turned off, or when a police report is contradicted by the evidence collected? I believe this practice of sweeping atrocities under the rug is why the movement to say the names of victims of police killings is so powerful. I also believe that everyone calling for justice knows that even when evidence is collected honestly, prosecutors falsely claim it is insufficient for a charge or conviction. When ex-St. Louis County prosecutor Bob McCullough bent over backwards to not charge Darren Wilson after he shot and killed Michael Brown, it matched a pattern of literally never charging a police officer with a crime in his decades-long career as a prosecutor. We will call for justice until there is true accountability for police officers, until evidence of systematic misconduct is not swept under the rug, and until we can trust that prosecutors at the highest levels are making honest charging decisions. I do not believe these are truly calls for justice, though. Instead, we are simply asking for the justice system to not exacerbate injustice. Only then, when the criminal justice system gets out of the way can we decide what justice really is. Thank you.
Good morning. It's a hard act to follow, Sam. My name is Maria Oropallo. I was sent an email by Todd to think about justice. So I did. I considered the word justice, what it means. And in broad terms, it means giving people their due, giving a person their due. We do this through a practice of trying to put physical order on what seems chaotic. Heady words, yes? Parenthetically, I find myself this morning speaking about justice slated between two attorneys. I have no special knowledge nor skills with the law. Well, there was that traffic ticket, and I did get out of it. I only know how justice feels, how justice looks, and how I want justice to be. Since being asked to participate, I thought a lot about justice, giving a person their due, and I kept coming up with fairness. We consider fairness, the quality of being fair, of showing no bias. Fairness. I grew up with 3 younger sisters. Our family celebrated Christmas, so presents were under the tree every December 25th. 4 girls, all 3 years apart. What did our stash of presents look like? There were 5 presents for each of us. Some boxes were bigger than others. I loved jigsaw puzzles. One of my sisters loved drawing, and a third loved board games. By the time my youngest sister was 4 years old, my parents had managed to buy a house and saved a good bit of money. That Christmas, she got a dollhouse, a huge dollhouse. I know because I put it together. On Christmas morning, little pangs of envy sounded around the room as we looked at our individual piles and then looked over at Elena's huge dollhouse. My parents were smart, though. That's all she got that year, while the rest of us got our 5 presents each. Fairness. It felt fair, feeling what we needed to feel. Was it just? As the plebeian speaker this morning, I went to what I consider the best arbiter of justice. Back to my script. In the criminal justice system, the people are represented by 2 yet equally important groups: the police who investigate crime and the district attorneys who prosecute the offenders. These are their stories. Law and order is a police and legal drama series created by Dick Wolf. The series lasted from 1990 to 2010, totaling 456 episodes. It premiered on August 13th, 1990 and ended on May 24th, 2010. For those of you who don't know, Law and Order starts with 30 minutes of police drama and ends with 30 minutes of legal drama as the teams attempt to prosecute the defendants. Plots were often loosely based on real cases that were in the headlines. One of the most appealing aspects of the Law and Order series is that it spoke to those feelings we cannot name. It dramatized wrongdoing. It raised our anxiety because we know when something seems off or wrong. And at the 23 minutes past the hour point, often the wrong person was arrested. And then the following 30 minutes, justice gets played out. This morning's lowbrow response to the topic, I will use quotes from the show to demonstrate what we want justice to look like, what we are afraid justice does look like, who we want meting out our justice, when justice tips to one side and when justice fails. In one episode between the Assistant District Attorney Stone and a defense attorney, the defense attorney says, "It's a crime of passion, Stone, pure and simple." ADA Stone responds, "A crime of passion is never pure, and it's certainly not simple." We know what we want justice to look like. In another episode, ADA Stone says, "Although justice must be tempered with mercy, it still must maintain a sense of retribution." Still must maintain a sense of retribution. What we are afraid that justice actually looks like is shown in this little vignette where Ben Stone goes into a room with a defendant and says, "Do you know what this is?" And the defendant said, "It's a gun." Stone sarcastically, "Very good. Can you spell gun?" And the convict says, "Sure, D-E-A-L." And Stone responds, "I see you've passed the spelling test." Creator Dick Wolf had decided that he wanted the series to be different than what was already on TV at the time. He wanted that detectives to be fallible. He wanted the prosecutors to be heroes. That was a departure from what was going on at TV at the time. He wanted the prosecutors to be heroes because justice, as we know, needs heroes. There's Batman, Superman, Aquaman. We know what heroes look like. We may even still have the costumes. Conversation between ADA Stone and the district attorney Schiff. Ben Stone says, "One way or another, that woman hit her child. That's not what bothers me." Schiff says, "What does bother you?" And Ben Stone says, "Well, my own rage." Hero. The best hero of the drama was longtime ADA Jack McCoy, as played by Stan Waterston, who in my opinion was the second most appealing aspect of the television series. Waterston is famous for his long-standing role on Law and Order. He starred in a total of 368 episodes of the show. Here are some McCoy hero quotes. "If I don't leave here with a guilty plea, Mr. Corley, I promise you'll do 45 years of hard time and they'll wheel me out of my retirement home to be at your parole hearings." Another was, "I want to convict him, Arthur. It happens to coincide nicely with the fact that he is guilty." I got you for conspiracy, and if I eat my Wheaties, I'll get you for second-degree murder, said McCoy. And finally, I've been playing legal tiddlywinks with these punks. What I'd really like to do is to take them out to Battery Park and hang them by the scrotum. Ouch. The show Law and Order also showed us when justice tipped. There are times justice tips, and we know because we feel it. Detective Rivera said, you know, McCoy, you want to put the bad guy behind bars, you have to get your hands dirty. And McCoy responds, the problem is, detective, sometimes it doesn't stop at the hands. We know how hard bringing justice is, working within an imperfect framework of laws. Sometimes coming to justice can be hard. McCoy once said, last time I checked, stupid is not a defense for murder. So what does the pursuit of justice feel like? In one episode, a detective was asked, what does your gut tell you? In another, a detective was asked, do you believe him? The detective responded, I believe on a good day, he couldn't hit his ass with both hands. Jack McCoy showed us that human beings don't always get it right, that sometimes even heroes can't make the system achieve justice. He once said, men are pigs. Sorry. And we should all rot in hell. Unfortunately, that's not my jurisdiction. Another line, I remember how hard it was when I realized my father was a son of a bitch. I can't imagine what it was like to realize that you raised one. Another time he said, your grief must seem a little more real had you not just admitted you cut off your wife's head. Okay, I'll stop. He was once asked, are you turning soft on me, Jack? He said, you know, I'm a sucker for an execution, but I'm here for the tortellini. And then there is justice failed. Lieutenant Briscoe responded to a question. I specifically asked for him to be put on suicide watch. Apparently, here at Rikers, that means they watch you commit suicide. These dramas, they point out our anxiety over fairness in our society. We know when we've been cheated or shortchanged or hurt or damaged. We know. These dramas feed our need for justice by usually providing someone to blame, a hero to met out justice, and an outcome that gives us the feeling of justice, because justice matters. What is justice to you? Do you know what outcomes should look like? Do we know that our heroes are fallible and, well, human? We want justice because we need to feel the system treats everyone equitably, and we are given what we are due. And while we can't always articulate what justice is, we know what it feels like. The sound, the feel, the assurity that the bad will be stopped, punished, and the good will prevail.
I don't know about you, but I've caught myself thinking many times over the last several months, I want things to be the way they used to be. In my privileged position, the way things used to be was pretty cushy. But for many in the United States, the old way was not working. As with most things in our society, this was especially true for people of color. So who are the heroes of our crisis? Surely the highly trained medical professionals, but even more, they are the truckers, warehouse workers, delivery people, maintenance workers, sanitation workers, supermarket cashiers, stock clerks, nurse assistants, hospital orderlies, and home care providers that continue to provide us with the necessities of life while we shelter in place. They are lauded in TV signs and TV commercials, yard signs. But when things return to normal, will we forget how critical they are to our lives? How important their work is, not only in a pandemic, but every single day. The truth is that many of these workers are unable to live with dignity on the compensation they receive. The wages they earn are often not sufficient to provide adequate food and shelter. Many lack health care and most do not have any paid leave. Adequate child care is a dream. They are a single serious illness or injury away from disaster. Before the pandemic, we as a society made clear that we do not respect the valuable contributions they make. Our economic system makes clear that hedge fund managers are far more important to us than the people who put food on our tables. We simply cannot return to the way we were. But already, many in Congress are refusing to extend supplemental unemployment benefits for fear they are encouraging people to delay returning to their minimum wage jobs. And businesses that offered so-called hero wages of $1 or $2 more are returning to the former inadequate wage as the economy reopens and the number of cases continues to rise. When we try to address the structure of our economy in order to provide the basic livelihood the inherent worth and dignity of each person demands, many argue that free markets are the answer to every question. They claim that any attempt to limit their right to offer or accept unconscionably low wages somehow infringes on their freedom. But no market can function without rules, so no market can be free in the libertarian sense. And it matters what those rules are and who gets to make them. My first job after law school in the early 1980s was with a Wall Street law firm. Reagan was in the White House and Wall Street operated, as it does today, on the Gordon Gekko concept that greed is good. That is where I first learned the golden rule. Oh, not the one, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I learned that one in Sunday school. No, the golden rule in that world was, he who has the gold makes the rules. Our so-called free market has been designed by those in power to maintain that power. As an example, for many years in our country, employers prevented workers' unions from equalizing bargaining power using both legal and violent means. It took the crisis of the Great Depression to create enough support to pass laws protecting the right to organize. But after a relatively brief period when the bargaining power of the parties was more equal and inequality declined, those rules have been systematically gutted so that employers again hold nearly all the power. Another example is the concept that a corporation's only obligation is to maximize value to shareholders. There was a time when the law and business practice recognized that the corporation also owed obligations to its employees and its community. But now, when the top 1% owns 50% of the stock market's value, and the top 10% owns 92% of that value, the law says only shareholder value matters. Changing these rules and the myriad others built into our current system requires more than minimum wage increases and mandatory leave laws. Many smart people have suggested steps that must be taken to ensure the dignity of every worker and to provide for those who cannot work as well. But it needs every one of us to work to ensure that our laws are made by all our citizens and not just those with the gold. We can't afford to waste this crisis. On the eve of his assassination, Martin Luther King Jr. was in Memphis to support the sanitation workers' strike for a living wage and better working conditions when he delivered his famous "I've been to the mountaintop" speech. In that speech, he told those gathered in words just as pertinent today, "Let us rise up tonight with greater readiness. Let us stand with a greater determination. And let us move on in these powerful days, these days of challenge, to make America what it ought to be. We have an opportunity to make America a better nation. It is up to us to realize the promise we the people made to establish justice."
Thank you so much for your profound reflections, Sam and Maria and Todd. Now is the time in our service when we join each week in the spiritual practice of generosity, perhaps a counterpoint to justice or a sister, guiding our hearts away from the fear and scarcity that is all around us, and remembering that it is by sharing and supporting one another that we feel most human. This week's offering will support the work of our congregation. You may contribute electronically at the link posted in the chat or mail contributions to the church. And as we give you a moment to give as you are able and as you wish, we will be sharing a song that was given to us by our band, Sam Otten, Sam Buffaloe, and Alan Arnold, "The Durable Groove." So please enjoy this music as we take our offering. And I want to let you all know that I will be posting a link to that song in our Columbia UU's Facebook group so you can listen again. We were having a little bit of a sound issue with Zoom. So please do go check that out at our Facebook group, with thanks to Sam and Alan for the beautiful music.
In 1853, Unitarian minister Theodore Parker said, "I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eye reaches but little ways. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by the experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience. And from what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice. Let us make it so." Please join hands with those around you, or by placing a hand on your heart, to join with us all in spirit and sing our benediction.
Now on leaving one another, may we give of hand and heart. Let us share our benediction, lovingly be